Turnout today. It's going to be a good meeting. Let's begin with introductions. I'm Joy McMurray, TMAC Chair.
Tehan Shur with Provo Public Works Engineering.
David Hurtado, TMAC alternate. David Keller, TMAC member, District 5, Joaquin River.
Hannah Fogle, Development Services Staff. Keith McKay, Co-City Council. I'm Carol Long. I'm here with Provo, Executive Director. I'm Hoover, Provo City Admin.
And Gavin, I'm here with Bike Walk Provo and also live in the River Grove neighborhood.
Greg McFarland, I'm a TMAC member.
And Province TMAC member.
Golden Golding, Development Services Parking.
Bill Gordon, TMAC member.
Steve Johnson, City Engineering.
8, Global Public Works.
Provo Public Works.
Gordon Keesler, Provo City Engineering.
And
Rich Hanley, Provo City Council.
I'm Jacob Brooks with Pine Tucson.
Thank you, Jacob.
okay, welcome everyone. Our first item today, as always, is approving our minutes from October. I move that we approve those minutes. All in favor? Excellent. Okay. And we'll jump right into it. We're really happy to have Aaron and Carol here today to present to us from Bike Walk Provo about our increasing our recognition as a bike-friendly city. Joy.
All right, thank you, Joy, and thank you everyone for giving us this time. So this is a presentation that Carol and Alex, who was a volunteer happiness coordinator for Bike Walk Provo until recently, the three of us gave to the mayor and to Scott a couple of months ago. Her reception, she was really excited about what we had to say, and in fact, Scott, in his remarks at the ribbon cutting this morning, said that the city intends to apply for gold level bicycle friendly community status by next year. So we thought, well, they got the message. So I'm going to go through this very quickly. I think you're more familiar with this topic than the mayor, so Carol and I will move through this very quickly. I'm going to do most of the talking, and Carol will interject when I stumble. All right.
I never stumble.
So who are you? You can control. May I?
Yeah, you bet.
That'll speed things forward. There you go.
You need a mouse as well for you.
I don't. Maybe. If I
You just gave the keys to the car to Aaron?
It's not a car. It's not a good.
Yeah, true.
All right. So as you all know, Provo will be hosting an Olympic venue, and so we kind of couched our presentation to the mayor in terms of how can we prepare for that, but also, other things besides that are happening. Provo is growing. We have more people living in our wider downtown area. We've been making good progress to making Provo more pedestrian, bicycle, and transit friendly. And how can we kind of move things forward? And I thought it was very apt that when the city put down these Olympic rings on Center Street, that they were right next to the bike marker, and I think there's a lot of synergy there. And that synergy is evident in other Olympic cities. You were paying attention to Paris. They've really gone gangbusters over the last decade to prepare for the Olympics, and actually just to become a city that values their residents' quality of life more. Same thing is happening in LA. The Mayor Bass there is saying that they're going to have a car-free Olympics, which is really hard to imagine in Los Angeles, but that's what they're aiming to do. Salt Lake as well, Mayor Mendenhall is really pushing forward AT, active transportation, and the Green Loop. I don't know if any of you have heard about that, but they have really ambitious plans for transforming Salt Lake and making it more pedestrian, bicycle, scooter friendly. All right, so just a review of I know you as a committee have talked about these sort of things, but just a reminder, the 2013 Bicycle Master Plan called for Provo to be a gold level bicycle-friendly community by 2020, and it noted that the 2010 General Plan had called for the city to quadruple its length of on-street bike lanes from 21 to 80 by 2020. So that was the goal. How did we do? We were recognized even before that as a bronze level BFC. We moved up to silver in 2016. We applied for gold, but didn't reach it in 2020, and we were renewed at silver. And as of today, we're still silver, and our bikeway mileage has gone beyond 80, but it's at 90. So kind of a mixed record. So we proposed to the mayor that we apply for gold level bicycle friendly community status by 2026, and actually Scott said 2025 today, so I guess our goal was not ambitious enough. And then we wanted to achieve platinum level status by 2034, and so we suggest applying by 2032. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide. I think this will be shared with you all so you can kind of look at the scorecard that we got in 2020. This is the last feedback that we got. The criteria, these 5 E's are on the left side, which is familiar to, you know, the engineers. They often talk about these E's, and then there's the scorecard on the right there. We can come back to this if you have any questions. So here's Provo. Here's its current bikeway map and the 90 miles of bikeways that exist. And I'd like to have you kind of get your reaction. I'm going to introduce 3 platinum level bicycle friendly communities. And all of these communities, just like Provo, are a university city. So take a look at our map and what are some of the differences between our map and these next 3 cities. So the first one that I'd like to introduce is Madison, Wisconsin. Anybody been to Madison? Okay. This is just a small part of Madison, home of the University of Wisconsin, major university. It has a total of 200 bikeways, and you can see some of them right there. Next one is Boulder. And actually all of these places are places that Madison's a lot colder than Provo, but Boulder and the next one after that are very similar to Provo in a lot of ways, particularly the last one as you'll see. There is their bikeway map. City of Boulder has 300 miles of bikeways. And I'll come back to this, but it's not just quantity, but quality also is really important. And then the last city is Fort Collins, home of Colorado State University. Has 200 plus miles of bikeways, similar climate to Provo, similar size university. The university is about the same distance from the downtown area. It has a BRT line that opened just a few years before ours did. And its per capita is higher than Provo, but it's not like the Republic of Boulder. There's not a vast difference. And you can see the bikeways there.
And pot is legal there, just.
Yeah. That's all Colorado. All right, so here is Provo, our bikeways. What differences did you see between those 3 cities and Provo's?
Besides the scale of the map?
Besides the scale of the map, yeah.
Connectivity of the bike.
Connectivity is lacking, right? It's not a seamless AT network. Anything else? Okay. The quality is different. If you've been to these, how many of you have been to Boulder? You've been riding in Boulder, right? Or no, you weren't part of that group that went from the city years ago. You've spent a lot of time in Boulder. You're from Boulder, right? All right. So there are differences in quantity and also in quality. And at Bike Walk Provo, over the last few months, we've come up with some suggestion additions that will bring us to a gold level and even, I think, to a platinum level. And those additions are in the yellow. We can, you have this at your disposal. We'd love to kind of talk about how we might implement these things going forward. I had a conversation about this with Gordon earlier. So this is how we get to gold level and platinum level and become a community that has a really high quality of life for everyone and gives people freedom of choice about how they move around. Carol, you want to feel free to interject anytime. Okay. Okay.
Yesterday, I had the privilege of being part of a panel by youth students, and the number one concern, they submitted 4 pages of questions in my panel, and there was like 1 page that was almost completely dedicated to safety. And we asked the students in the class how many of them owned a bicycle, and it was only 2. Their main concern was safety, and as we see with these other university cities, this connectivity and this prioritization really does make a difference for students, especially if it's something that's not the culture they grew up with, not something they're familiar with. But as a university city, we should be prioritizing how we get our students to use micromobility, use public transportation, because it does bring a lot of congestion, especially with our growing city and with the Olympics coming up. Congestion and parking problems are just always going to be a thing unless we can shift the culture and give them the tools and give them the education and the assurance, not only through policy and culture, but also through like what we saw today with the 300 south completion of the bike intersection, making that neighborhood bikeway more complete. We're giving them these assurances that it is safe and we can get you to where you need to go as a city safely. But it made me really sad that we spent so much time at the panel talking about safety instead of talking about how fun and environmentally friendly it is, how much less expensive it is. Most of what we focused on was safety and how to try to do it comfortably. And that, I thought that was really sad.
Yeah, that's the biggest barrier there's a lot of people who would like to get around by other means, but simply because they don't feel safe, they avoid even trying. And I should have clicked this and shown that. So this is the first west bicycle intersection. All right, so here's some of the feedback. Really, how am I doing on time, Joy?
Great.
You're doing great? Okay. So here, they gave us the scorecard, and then they gave us some written feedback. And that's the passages that are in quotes on the side. So obviously, expand and improve the bike network, and follow the criteria that increase the separation and protection for bicyclists, depending on motor speeds and volumes. So there's a variety of kind of treatment facilities that would be appropriate. And the comments that you'll see on the lower right-hand side are kind of our reaction to this. So the 2020 TMP references, references the 2013 Bicycle Master Plan and offers infrastructure options, but it doesn't really have anything to say about selection criteria. Quantity matters, but so does quality. And just to kind of say a little bit more about that, here's some examples from Madison about that and Minneapolis that kind of show how these are low-cost solutions, and quantity is really important. So on the left-hand side is a neighborhood bikeway that is filtering vehicle traffic, partially closing this street as you enter into it, and then the use of plastic bollards in Minneapolis, really low-cost solution that provides some protection, and to our immense pleasure. Provo has started to adopt some of these best practices. Really, I want to give a shout out to Vern for implementing these on the Grandview Hill to improve pedestrian safety at Timpanogos on the lower left-hand side, and then more recently, providing some protection on that last stretch of Cougar Boulevard as you approach UIU. So yeah, let's continue to do these sorts of things. Also, we have closed or partially closed some entrances to streets. We've done this, today, and with those neighborhood bikeways, cars can no longer go straight through. They can't execute a left-hand turn. And I'm really happy that this is happening by the bridge, where Isabel was hit and killed over a year ago. And so we can do this, and we should do it more often. We're on a grid system, so people have other options about how to get around, and we can do this inexpensively. It's not going to break the bank. Continue on. They recommended in 2020 that we adopt a complete street policy and create some implementation guidance. The city did that in 2021, but it does not appear that there's really any implementation guidance. So we would like to see at Bike Walk Provo to have our complete policy be more robust and our Vision Zero goals as robust as Salt Lake's. Theirs are much more robust than Salt Lake's, and it made me think maybe the lives of people in Salt Lake are more valuable than ours. Yeah.
And can I say, even without not much implementation guidance, it's very impressive, the improvements that have been made so far.
Yeah.
In our last pedestrian count data that we collected this year, we noticed increase by 11% of female ridership, which whenever there are more women on bikes, you know that the environment's becoming safer and more equitable. So we saw that increase. So that's very promising. The changes that are happening, the things that are being built and made, they are making a difference. And we want to recognize that. And we know with more guidance and with more a narrowed down vision, we can accomplish even more, because how much has been accomplished even without the implementation guidance.
What you are missing here is the city council adopted the safety action plan in 2022, which does have goals for ultimate zero vision and 50% reduction by 2050. So there's another document that has been implemented.
Okay, wonderful. That's great news. Thank you.
What's it called again?
Safety action plan.
So, Vern, would that be, but do we still need an implementation guidance for the complete streets, or is that sufficient?
I think when we start talking about implementation is not in the safety action plan for the complete streets policy. However, based upon budgets and based upon the recommendation of the League of American Bicyclists, what they're suggesting is that we come up with some type of prioritization method. And we have that currently in phase 1, A and B, and phase 2, A and B, but there's not metrics like they're suggesting. So in our next plan, we probably want to include some type of metrics like the speed, like the volume, maybe a safety index as well, as we look at some of these on-street bikeways.
When you say our next plan, which plan?
When the transportation master plan is updated, yeah.
Okay.
And that's something we really want to be able to do in a few years. We want to be able to connect our 2013 bike plan. We want to be able to put our transportation master plan, our active transportation chapter, and put it all in one nice document.
I mean, just for the purposes of strategizing around the goal, though, would we need to, sounds like this, I mean, I don't know how many points it's worth. I certainly assume it's not a meaningless exercise, so it would probably be helpful for us to accelerate it a little bit if we.
Yeah, so we can email this out. This is the report card that he's showing up there and showing, and down on the bottom gives some recommendations and steps to goal. So as a city, this is the application itself. See how thick this is? This is double-sided, okay? Double-sided. It's a thick application. I am meeting weekly on this application and monthly with the administration right now, as we prepare to submit this by June 25th deadline. And we won't find out until December of next year if we get and obtain the gold status like our goal is. So there's a lot of work. We want our partners, Bike Walk Provo, to come in and be able to provide some background information. We think it's valuable for the TMAC to hear it as well from some advocacy groups and not just from your staff.
Thank you. All right, so back to the feedback. So the next one is, we can cover this quick, continue to increase the amount of high-quality bicycle parking and make sure that it is at the right destinations. Bike Walk Provo, the city, the school district, I think we've made some good progress on this since 2020. And then this has to do with safe routes to school and so on. And I think we've seen a lot of energy being directed at that. So expand bicycle safety education and create more programming. As I said, lots has been happening, and Bike Walk Provo, kind of in collaboration with the city, has been, and the district has been pushing things forward. So I think we're on a good track in this respect. I think we can do better in some ways, but yeah. And then develop a community-wide trip reduction program to encourage and support bike commuters in Provo. This program does not exist. Park City has a program that we could possibly model on. But I, once again, kind of turn to Fort Collins and CSU, which as a university and as a city kind of work hand in glove with the goal, the stated explicit goal of reducing single occupant automobile commutes to campus to less than 50%. And that includes athletic events. That would be good for everyone. And you know, UTA would obviously be a part of this. I think we can do much better. A lot of this depends on the town-gown relationship. But, you know, a group of us at BYU who are concerned about this as faculty and staff met and discuss this and discuss how we can get the administration to do better. So obviously this is not just on the city, but you know, your partner.
It would be nice to be able to park a bike at the stadium that's not attached to like a parking sign.
Yes, yeah, and yeah.
I would say that these programs are often run by the NPO, a lot of places, rather than by cities.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people would need a ride home to Orem.
Yeah.
And it'd be really hard to run through the Provo City.
So that's why UTA, you know, maybe MAG, I don't know.
I think would have to.
Yeah. Yeah.
We kind of took a little bit step backwards on this, and the reason why I say we're partners with Utah Transit Authority as well, but their board voted recently back in August to charge for UVX, and I really believe we took a step back there instead of a step forward. We're noticing a difference as Kahan and I work the BYU home football games. We've noticed a decrease in ridership in UVX to and away, to and from those games, and we've seen an increase. So when we had people riding the bus for free, we could have essentially everything cleared out in about an hour and 5 minutes if everything went well. This last time we were there for an hour and 30 minutes because we're seeing fewer people ride UVX to the BYU football game. So that has an impact. Now, the question of policy of who pays for it, that's above my pay grade, right? That's with our elected officials and the board of UTA. But it does have an impact.
Thank you, Bert. All right. So establish, this is another, one of the feedback at the bottom of that form. Establish a dedicated annual budget for implementation of the bicycle master plan, in addition to a funding for ongoing bicycle programming and infrastructure development maintenance. Establish and adopt specific measurable goals to better benchmark and track the success of your bike plan. We've discussed this in years past. we took Gordon at his word that active transportation is receiving more funding than it would if it had dedicated funding. So we trust Gordon. I think we need to kind of communicate that in the application if that's the case. Although I would say having dedicated funding has symbolic power, and it kind of guarantees things going forward and avoids kind of changes in the, the direction that the wind is blowing. All right, adopt a target level of bicycle use, percent of trips. So set a goal. This is the number of people, the percentage of people that we want on bikes or scooters and walking, and aim to achieve that within a specific time frame and ensure data collection necessary to monitor progress. We at Bike Walk Provo can't set the goal for you, but we have been conducting annual counts for 5, 6, 7 years now, and we supply this data to the city. We need the city to set a goal. And I think, given that we're a university town, or university city full of students, this is something that we ought to do and kind of follow Fort Collins and Colorado State in that.
So, sorry,
Yep.
just to be clear.
Yeah.
You're doing counts of bicycles, right?
And
Which would not inform a percent of trips, measure, right?
No, we're doing what we can.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Bicycles, scooters, walkers.
So how do we measure that? How does that?
Surveys usually. You survey people and ask, how did you travel for this purpose? The Census Bureau does its American Community Survey, which asks people how they travel to work. And so you could set a target for Provo City based on the commute trip, but they don't ask about other types of trips.
Can we do apps?
There are apps. There's also the Utah Household Travel Survey, which is done every 10 years. They're trying to do it more often. So you could get data from WFRC and MAG and look at, okay, well, give us households in Provo, what percent of their trips who were surveyed are made by bicycles. Like that data exists. It's not updated super regularly. The count data is good because it can tell you like at least where people are using the bike lanes, but it doesn't inform like how many people. Like one person will show up 7 times as they go through each of the counters.
And once again, BYU would need to be a part of it. I think they have some data. I wish they were kind of measuring this more aggressively. They certainly have it for transit. If people are tapping on, tapping off using their BYU IDs. Carol?
UDOT has told me that a lot of the data they have on cyclists and pedestrians, they pull from Strava but that information is kind of skewed because of the demographic that uses Strava. But we understand it is logistically difficult to track trips on a bike. But that's where they pull data. I don't know if that would help us.
Can you go on? Yeah. All right. Create an official bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee to create a systematic method for ongoing citizen input into the development of important policies, plans, and projects. Ensure that the members of the committee reflect the diversity and ability levels of cyclists in your community.
I kind of feel we need that with this organization, so.
Yeah, that's what we agree. And I think there's a really good representation. In some ways, I think having cycling and walking and active transportation part of a wider transportation conversation is for the best. Just so that but those voices we need to ensure that those voices don't get lost. All right, increase the amount of staff time spent on improving conditions for people who bike and walk, perhaps by creating a new dedicated active transportation coordinator position, which the 2013 Bicycle Master Plan called for. I know you talked about this as a committee. Now that Gordon is not only serving as Public Works Director, but also City Engineer, maybe you have the funds to hire a dedicated active transportation position. And I want to note that your engineering staff over the last 5 years or so has drastically increased their time and attention to active transportation infrastructure, and we greatly appreciate that. We recognize that. You have superb personnel now, and thank you. We've talked about erecting statues of you and some of your immediate predecessors. But we also recognize that you don't have enough time. You don't have human resources that you need. And having, I think there is something to be said for having somebody within the city, and at BYU for that matter, who's really dedicated to this work, to getting people on transit and using active transportation. And I think that should be a priority. And I think the outcomes would be better if that was the case. Before I sum up, anything, Carol, you want to?
I wanted to share that as an organization, we're really trying to, since we're a ragtag team of volunteers, we're really trying to make the most impactful actions we can take. Some of that is just reaching out to like BYU, talking to teams. And our impact can only be amplified if there's people who are very dedicated. I'm thinking specifically at BYU that it was great that they gave the students access to transit for free, but they didn't give much else to support that, like more education about it, more like when I spoke to the students, I had to tell them, like, did you know there's a travel training program that you can have a UTA employee go with you to help you navigate the UTA system? Did you know that XYZ? There's just so many things that they don't know, and they, like, I never heard this. And so, like, we are asking for help because as a volunteer organization, there's only so much time, so much we can do. So to have dedicated people at the city, at BYU, to help decrease the congestion, increase our sustainability, increase the health and happiness of our citizens, especially with the epidemic of loneliness, the epidemic of depression, the epidemic of obesity that we're seeing. Like, these things aren't just, oh, it's those bike people. It's also so our kids can bike to school safely. So students don't have to keep paying for their car because they have classes to pay for and they don't have as many hours at work because they have to do homework. But maybe I'm preaching to the choir because this is what you do, transportation mobility.
Thank you, Carol. So just to sum up, we urge you as a committee and as city staff to go for the gold. Sounds like you already are, and go beyond. Go to platinum. Let's become a university city with the kind of quality of life of these other communities. Other things that are happening, we suggested to the mayor that the city reapply for bicycle-friendly business status as an employer, and it did so years ago and got a bronze level, and Hannah is leading the effort to move things to silver. Also, I think you hear this all across the city, in every single neighborhood, Northeast Provo, West Provo, everywhere. People are driving too fast, and particularly through our neighborhood residential streets. So we've just kicked off a campaign that we started at the World Day of Remembrance, remembering to honor victims of traffic violence on Sunday, a campaign 20 is 20. So let's do what Salt Lake did a couple of years ago and redesignate all of our residential streets to 20 miles per hour. It's mainly symbolic. I mean, if you don't redesign your streets, it's not really going to drastically change behavior, but I think it is important. And we're hearing this, you're hearing this from residents all across the city about people driving way too quickly. And this is a step toward addressing that. So this is more of a policy issue, I think, that maybe the council would have to decide, but I hope you'll give it some thought. So that's our presentation. I hope we have some time for some Q&A and discussion. to you, Joy.
Yeah, thank you. TMAC members, any questions? We don't have a lot of time. We have a couple of minutes. Any questions you'd like to ask?
Do you mind if I can use
Oh, yes, yeah, keep that. I'll hand that.
the key here?
I think having some sort of, we mentioned this on the show, looking at that last evaluation we got and figuring out like what are the things that we could implement most quickly that would get us the most points, if you will, in that scorecard. That's one way to get status. It's not necessarily a way to make the biggest improvement necessarily.
And actually, we don't really care about the status. We care about the improvements on the ground.
Yeah, so I just encourage your staff to focus on the improvements at least as much as you're focusing on.
I wonder if, and I don't know, Reese might want to weigh in on this, but I wonder if it wouldn't be helpful for the council to have this committee deliberate about, you know, a set of priorities that, you know, that have to do with gold status, have to do with implementation guidelines, maybe 3 or 4 or 5 of the most important things that you feel like the council should give its attention to, and that might help us as we enter into a new budget season in January and start looking at, you know, bigger picture issues. It would just be nice to get some assessment from you all of what was just presented and sort of a set of recommendations, and Vern could kind of guide us on that in terms of what would be the most helpful actions that the council could contemplate taking. I mean, some of this, it doesn't need council, but obviously some of it would, right? If we were changing speed limits or changing budget situations, but without the robust discussion that we've just had, and you would probably continue to have, the council's not going to, you know, it's a heavy lift for the council as well. But if we start with recommendations coming from this body, that maybe gives us the opportunity to then start having some work sessions and looking at specific actions. I don't know what the rest of you think, or.
So under Vern's guidance, a small group in Joaquin applied for an asphalt art grant and last year, or a year and a half ago, whatever it was. And we've got a short deadline, but we've met the deadline on short time schedules before. And I'm wondering where in Joaquin in particular would asphalt art be most helpful for pedestrian and bike safety? And by asphalt art, if you know, is stuff that is paint that's there for a couple of years, maybe at most, but it kind of sends a message, gets people's attention.
This is in Joaquin.
Mm-hmm.
I think 8th North.
8th North?
Yeah.
8th North and 2nd East would be
Yeah.
the perfect intersection. Do something like that. It's a 3-way stop, shut it down during the summer, around it. So if we're looking at that, and David and I and Susan, his wife, we're looking at that asphalt grant again, submitting that, and I think we'll do in January. Gotta get going.
End of January, yeah.
Yeah, just north of Now, asphalt art may seem just like decoration, but actually it can help encourage traffic calming. And 8th North is where we need traffic calming. Female student just last week got hit on that street.
For multiple ambulances and fire trucks there today at 9 a.m. I don't know what they were doing, but
Probably another auto collision.
We have thought about 4th East and 5th North, but that's kind of, there's work planned for that.
Yeah, so 5th North and 4th East, about a year and a half ago, we did get approved for CDBG funding As part of that funding, currently it is being designed. We did a study on that at that intersection. Initially, the plan was just to do bulb outs, but then after doing a full study, we found out that we had far too many crashes at that intersection. So then we shifted our focus towards having a mini roundabout there. As I did a full warrants analysis study, a mini roundabout would not be a good traffic calming device for that location. And instead, it warranted a signal there. So we're currently looking at a signal, fully controlled intersection, 5th North, 4th East. 5th North, 4th East. So that signal, yes, that signal is currently being designed. We're about 60%, 70% in design. Our goal is to get that ready, bid out, starting sometime early January, get the construction going. So
Could you take the signal that's 2nd East and 5th North and move them down and put in a mini roundabout there? That's what the neighborhood wanted on that.
right, I did a full study on the mini roundabout. The traffic volume on 5th North is triple than what is on 4th East. So that would not be a good candidate for a roundabout. Usually you normally like to have that 55, 45, 40, 60 volume on both roads for a roundabout to be a successful traffic calming device. That's not the case. So
Another reason to give students another, more viable option other than driving.
right, because it will be fully controlled. We will still maintain our bicycle lanes on 5th North, and we'll have, like I said, it will be all-way controlled pedestrian movement at the signal intersection. So, and then the next intersection being 6th North and 4th East. Next year, I applied again for CDBG, and luckily we were awarded that funding as well. But speaking, I'm doing a design for that intersection. That will be more just bulb outs only. I did a full study on that intersection as well. Luckily, we don't have any crashes there. So our focus will be just to improve safety improvements at that intersection, better lighting, bulb outs, crossings, and things of that nature. So that's what's happening as speaking. Both of the projects should go to construction early of next year. You bet.
Okay, Aaron, I have a lot of questions we don't have time to get into today. I would love to invite you guys back and do a deeper dive into, all of these responses that were a little too small for me to read up there, and same with your map with the yellow with the proposed improvements. I think there's a lot of conversation we could have there, especially if City Council is telling us that a list of priorities would be helpful. I think we have to look at both of those in much more detail. But thank you. Thank you for this initial presentation, and thank you to Bike Walk Provo generally for all the volunteer hours to make our city better. Really, really, really appreciate it. Okay, so let's move on. Vern has 3 presentations in a row. We'll see how far we get today. I think we'll be okay. We'll do short versions. So nice to have lots to talk about. First is safe routes. It's the season for safe routes, and we'll start with that.
Sure.
Okay.
That'd be fine. So as many of you know, we had a new school from the Provo City School District open this last fall, with Shoreline Middle School, located in Dixon neighborhood, and Dixon Middle School. We've been pretty busy doing projects around there. Our staff is also working on we received a grant for future, what I call gap projects on the west side to connect sidewalks where we have the gaps. So that's moving really well, and that's a Safe Routes to School grant that we received from UDOT. Yes.
When you're talking about the gap project on those that are, put the sidewalk in as a temporary.
In this particular case, we've actually identified gaps in sidewalks that are on streets where we have the storm drain and some other improvements. It's kind of a mix. I have the map in my office if you'd like to see it, but we will be moving forward with that. Next year is all the design year. Construction will be 2026. We also have a new elementary school that opens up in January, on January 15th. So middle of winter, trying to get all our stuff in place now while the weather is good in preparation for that for school. We know that right around the school, we've spent literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in sidewalk and infrastructure to make that safe with Oak Cliff and Oakmont and Locust and 820 and traffic signal, that we're just doing a whole lot, and that's all in the name of safe routes to school as well. It also benefits the neighborhood, right? But when it comes to safe routes to school, I recently went to training with the Provo City School District. We had all the principals and all the chairs of the safety community councils actually there. We talked about some of the parameters that we have and the process to request improvements around schools. So we went to that meeting, and then I've attended at least 5 or 6 meetings with the safety council or community councils at elementary schools and Centennial Middle School this week. And the process is for them to submit any improvements that they're requesting to the principal. That's what the community council does. Then the principal looks at those improvements and then makes recommendations to the Provo City School District, and Jared and his group review those. And then they make recommendations and meet with Provo City. So it comes back to me again, where we sit down and we go over some of those requests. Just because a community council makes a request or identifies a hazard, doesn't mean the principal is going to recommend it. Doesn't mean that the school district's going to recommend it. It doesn't mean it gets all the way back to me. So that's why I attend those meetings in person, so I can get the full story. And then when it does come back to me after meeting with the school district, we have a good understanding of what their priorities are. So that's the way that whole process works for Safe Routes to School. We are in the process when a school asks for some type of improvement, we'll go out and do some studies, and we'll see if their existing infrastructure warrants the type of infrastructure that they have, or some of the lacking areas does warrant the infrastructure they have. Students change. The pupils of the school, the boundaries kind of stay the same, but the ages of these kids change all the time. And so sometimes we might have a lot of people coming from this street that needs a reduced speed school zone, and then it migrates, okay? And that no longer warrants that reduced speed school zone, but maybe this one now does. And I can give you a couple examples that we're seeing that right now. So that's our Safe Routes to School process and update. We work closely with the elementary schools and the middle school, and I even met the high schools as well. We have a close relationship with Tenview due to the construction and parking. So that's always fun, but really when you're talking safe routes and crossing guards, it applies only to the elementary schools. Middle schools will do the safe routes, but they don't have crossing guards to be old enough to cross the street. Any questions, any comments on safe routes? Joy and I have been working very closely. Joy is the chair of the community council for Wasatch Elementary.
Well, for the safe route.
That's been fun.
For safe routes.
No, so I would just personal note, we've been working for the last year and a half pretty intensively. We've had so many meetings. And so thank you to Public Works for a job very, very well done. We're not done yet. We have to also see what happens once the school opens and the kids surprise us with what we tried to anticipate as much as we could, but it has been so many hours and so much money spent to get that ready. I think school districts should take note that when they choose to move a school, that puts a ton of work on the city to be aware of for future, but we've really, really appreciated it. And I'm excited for all of the changes that have been going in that are going to be really good. So thank you. Okay, and the timing for that, the cycle of community councils that usually begins in November is when we're supposed to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So in November, the principals are supposed to have their recommendations from the community councils, and then they review it and send it to the school district. And this spring, the school district will meet with Provo City after reviewing all those school recommendations, and we'll say what's possible and what's not, and what we can study and what we can't.
And the next fall, the process starts all over again.
Starts again every year.
Okay. Quiet zone update.
Railroad quiet zone update. So I'm not sure where we left it last month, but we're down to 1 railroad crossing for the Lehigh quiet zone that needs to be improved. It's at 1700 South in Salt Lake City. I spoke to Salt Lake City, person in charge of that yesterday and got the most recent update. They're in negotiations with the property owner right now to relocate that, access. The big giant warehouse. It has already 4 total accesses. Losing this one temporarily and relocating it somewhere else is not gonna hurt, that warehouse. And this is coming from someone that has a little bit of experience in freight planning, right? So, it's not gonna hurt them whatsoever. So hopefully they can move pretty fast on that. In the meantime, the FRA was nice enough to go out and inspect all the crossings that had deficiencies this week, and all of them passed. You're the first to hear that, okay? They all passed. I got the letter yesterday. The good news is it's just that one crossing at 1700 South in Salt Lake City. Once that is done, our quiet zone can be reinstated for the next 3 years. So, yeah, everybody should be happy if we can get that done by the end. That's my update.
Thank you very much.
I think it's on the road. Probably day and a half. Probably something that needs to be addressed.
That was rough. That was from a lightning strike. It hit just north of 820 North. We were down for a day and a half. In my mind, it should have taken UTA a day and a half to do that. We were out there till 6 o'clock at night, one night, making sure that people didn't cross the tracks illegally. It was so tough. Our police department was out there. They got out there. Hey, I even had to call Richard. Well, he was about asleep by 8 o'clock, but we called Richardson worked for Provo City for 40 years. He knows everything there is about Provo. He went out there with his truck and closed one of our crossings for us until the police got out there. So we were aware of it. It was a weird situation with the railroad, with the lightning strike hitting the rail. That's what happened.
Well, and I understand that. It was just.
The nightmare.
Are you saying we should have a contingency plan, Beth?
Yeah.
Okay.
So you either had to go to Parkway, University Parkway in Orem, or you had to go down to Provo Center Street, because all other crossings between that was closed. So only did that 3.5 mile stretch. Oh, I brought this up to you, Doug, anytime.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, other, construction projects updates.
Construction projects update. Let's go over the first one that we just did a ribbon cutting today on. That was 300 South. That project is substantially complete. It's just now on site doing some punch list items. So that will be completed by the end of the year. You guys have heard the good story on this one. This was awesome. It wasn't scheduled to be completed until May of next year. And we just, UDOT requires 1 lane in each direction to be open at all times. And we put our heads together with the contractor and with the city and with the school district and started talking and said, we can close this road for a little over a month. We could make up a lot of time. So we closed the road for 38 days. Wasn't the best thing for businesses and residents, but I will tell you that it didn't stretch out to May. We got this project done 6 months in advance because of closing it for 38 days. There's a video that we will show you in January.
We're not meeting.
In January of, once we closed that road, it was safer for the contractors to do their work. We must have a dozen different crews on that 4-block area. I can't wait to show you the video. It's really cool. You're gonna like it. And then our University Avenue and Canyon Road is substantially complete as well. They are out there doing the punch list items, and they need to sweep the bike lanes and get that done and finished up before the end of the month as well. Other construction projects, 2000 North was completed recently. Totally good back in the woods. We had that road shut down as well, only to shut it down because of the lightning strike. But that got new water and new sewer lines through it, and it now is most of the utility work is done over to Lakeview Parkway. Any others, Gordon or Joseph, that I'm missing? We just wrap up everything, so.
And there won't be any more, right?
We have that one busy.
You're throwing away all the orange cones, everything. We're done.
So one of my pet peeves is construction companies leaving those out over the winter. So I have our streets guys, whenever they see one, just throw it in the back of their pickup and bring it back. If they come back and claim it, that's great, they can have it. But I don't want to see orange cones out in December through March. Now, with that big warning, University Avenue Bridge goes under construction starting in March and April. Okay,
Oh.
that will be down to one lane in each direction for the next 2 years. It will be a nightmare. Not to mention,
You'll have backup on University, right?
we're gonna have backup in several blocks on University. So we'd love to detour them on Lakeview Parkway over to 9th East, or over to State Street. But that left turn, we only have one left turn lane, so that's gonna be a challenge. So all these, we meet, and poor UTA, right? They wanna make sure their UBX runs on time, and not late, and they can't go to Freedom, because if they get stuck by the Union Pacific train, that throws the whole schedule off. So all these our whole transportation system is just a delicate balance. It really is.
Oh, this will be 2 years?
2 full years.
I wonder if there's a way they could operate this house.
We've explored that, yeah. We've had 3 one-hour calls with UTA about their bus routing. Latest one was today at 11 o'clock, or 10 o'clock.
They don't want to do it, or they don't do it?
They cannot. So we've explored some of those out-of-the-box thinking like that, and we'll continue to do so. In March, or in January, we'll bring a couple other things back to you. We've got a couple other presentations for you and updates that we'll do. And we'll give you a monthly update on our application that's extremely thick.
Thank you, Lynn, very much. Thank you, everyone. Enjoy December off, and we will meet again in January. Thank you, everyone.
Carol.